Alex's mistress outside got pregnant. He brought up divorce with me again. This time, I didn't make a scene with Alex. I just added an extra 0 to the asset division section of the divorce agreement. Alex didn't know yet. But I was pregnant too. The child wasn't his. I held the divorce agreement. Alex had someone draft and read it for a full 10 minutes. He sat on the sofa opposite, his brow tightly furrowed, his tone impatient. Haven't you finished reading yet? Alex and I had been married for 3 years. Although we had no children, our shared interests weren't so easy to untangle. I looked back at the clause in the divorce agreement where the husband would pay the wife $20 million in a lump sum. And then I smiled. I picked up the pen on the table, added a 0 after the 20 million, and handed it to Alex. 20 million is too little. After 3 years of marriage. It was only because of my father's support that you could secure your position as president of the Smith family. Make it 200 million. If you agree to give me 200 million, well, go straight to the city hall. This time, it was Alex's turn to fall silent. I didn't rush him. Alex had cheated on me in the 2nd year of our marriage because of his mistress Sophie. We'd argued countless times over it. Recently, Sophie got pregnant and deliberately set up a live stream. In that short half-hour stream, Sophie vomited 3 times. And that very night, Sophie and Alex's affair was exposed and went viral on trending topics. 200 million. Alex lit a cigarette, blew out a careless puff of smoke, and gave me a fake smile. Emily, you really dare to ask for an exorbitant amount. I had liked Alex unrequitedly for many years. 3 years ago, during the internal turmoil in the Smith family, everyone else avoided them. But I seized the opportunity and begged my father to let me marry Alex. With my father's support and my help, Alex quickly stabilized the Smith family's situation and became president of the Smith family. I thought he'd see me in a new light and we'd live happily ever after like in movies and novels. But the world is no fairy tale. I knew how promiscuous Alex had been in the past. But I never imagined he'd cheat after marriage. At first, I made hysterical scenes with him. Later, I grew numb. To be honest, this wasn't the first time Alex had brought up divorce with me. Not long after he got together with Sophie. Sophie once came to provoke me, and I slapped her twice. That day, Alex came home furious and first mentioned divorce to me. After that, every time we argued, he'd bring up divorce. I cried and made scenes. But this time I was truly tired. I didn't want to cry or make a fuss. 200 million. Not a penny less, I said, smiling at him. After all, if it weren't for me and my father, it's hard to say if you'd still be sitting securely as president of the Smith family now. The Smith family had made a lot of money these past 2 years. I can wait. But your Miss Sophie can't afford to, can she? I heard she's 3 months pregnant. You don't want your child born as an illegitimate child, do you? After all, you're an illegitimate child yourself. You must know exactly how that feels. My words hit Alex right in the gut. Alex's face turned icy. A few minutes later, he called his lawyer to draft a new divorce agreement, with all other terms unchanged except the lump sum payment shifting from 20 million to 200 million. This time, I didn't hesitate. I signed my name with flair and immediately followed Alex to the city hall to handle the paperwork. After finishing the formalities, Sophie, who had arrived unnoticed, stood at the bottom of the steps in a loose white dress, looking like a pure, flawless jasmine flower. Alex. Sophie's eyes were fixed on Alex. Seeing him come out, she took a few quick steps up the stairs. Be careful. Alex was startled and hurried over to steady her. Sophie playfully stuck out her tongue at him, then looked at me. Miss Emily. I couldn't be bothered with her and shifted to descend on the other side. Sophie's appearance seemed innocent, kind, and pitiful, like a fragile, delicate flower. Despite her delicate and fragile appearance, This young girl repeatedly sent me intimate photos and videos of her and Alex using a burner account. After I retaliated, she vented her anger by somehow obtaining my photo, turning it into a funeral photo, and mailing it to me. Emily, Alex called out to me, saying, "Since we're already divorced, I hope you can move out of the villa as soon as possible." Sophie also gave me a sweet smile. "Yes, Emily. We're waiting for you to move out so we can renovate the villa again. After all, our tastes are different, and I don't really like the current decor. Plus, we need to prepare a nursery now." As Sophie spoke, she gently placed her hand on her abdomen, her face beaming with a bright smile, her eyes full of smugness. Oh, speaking of pregnancy, I pursed my lips, almost forgetting that I was pregnant too. But the child wasn't Alex. I nodded at them. "Don't worry. I'll move out quickly." At the end of the first year of my marriage, my father, who had been widowed for many years, remarried. And this year my half-brother could already walk. Their family of 3 is living well now. So after the divorce, I didn't plan to move back and disturb them. I had a lot of belongings. And even with 2 housekeepers helping to pack, it took a full day. After that, I hired a moving company and moved everything to the house I had bought earlier. Both my father and stepmother called to urge me to move back in with them, but I refused. It took me 3 or 4 days to finally get everything organized in my new home. While lying on the new sofa, eating fruit and scrolling through videos, I got a call from the hospital. 2 weeks ago, I went to the hospital for a checkup because I wasn't feeling well and unexpectedly found out I was over 8 weeks pregnant. My first reaction was not to keep this child. The doctor, probably used to such situations, just told me some precautions and scheduled the procedure. Today was the scheduled day. I had completely forgotten about it. After hanging up, I sat alone on the sofa, lost in thought for a long time. I knew very well that the child in my womb wasn't Alex. And as for the father, just thinking about that man gave me a headache. I thought it over for a while and finally decided to go ahead and have the baby. I was divorced from Alex. My father had remarried and had a brother. I had no plans to remarry. And I'd likely be living alone from now on. Having a child to keep me company might make things better. Thinking this way, I suddenly felt a surge of beautiful anticipation for the baby in my belly. I switched to a top-notch private hospital and went for a prenatal checkup. After the checkup, I remembered I had left a few books at Alex's villa. So I drove over to pick them up. I had already arranged with Auntie Wang at the villa that she would quit after this month and come work for me with a raise. She had packed the books for me and brought them to the entrance. I didn't expect to run into Alex and Sophie so coincidentally. They had just returned from outside. As the car stopped at the villa entrance, Sophie got out with a dark expression, looking very angry. Alex called after her helplessly from behind, but she ignored him. I had already picked up my things and confirmed Auntie Wang's start date with me. Just as I was about to leave, Sophie and Alex spotted me. "Emily." Sophie looked at me warily. "What are you doing here? You and Alex are divorced now. Even if something came up, you shouldn't come looking for him. I'm not here for him." I shook the bag in my hand. "I forgot some things earlier. I came to get them." "What things?" Alex frowned as he approached, eyeing me suspiciously. "You're not making an excuse to see me, are you?" Alex, rest assured," I said. "Since we're divorced, I have absolutely no intention of clinging to you. I'm leaving now, and I wish you and Sophie a long and happy marriage with many children." "Wait." Alex walked toward me, staring intently into my eyes as if judging whether I was lying. "Emily Johnson, it's always been you chasing after me and pursuing me from the very beginning. You were never my type to begin with. I couldn't help but ask, if I'm not your type, why did you agree to marry me back then?" Alex pursed his thin lips, He married me because he saw my family background could help him secure his position as the head of the Smith family. Now that he's burning bridges after crossing the river, who could say anything? I didn't feel like talking to him anymore. So I grabbed my bag and got into my car. Before marrying Alex, I worked at my dad's company. But after the wedding, I quit. I started my own studio, specializing in niche designs and evening gowns. After a few days off, I officially began working again. When it came to divorcing Alex, my dad initially criticized me, saying I was too impulsive. But once he found out I got $200 million from the divorce settlement, he immediately said it was fine to end it. That a cheating man is like a rotten apple, keeping it around just lets it rot and stink. I thought I might feel blue and sentimental after the divorce, but I didn't. From the day I decided to let go of Alex, I rarely thought about him. After a 1-month cooling-off period, Alex and I got our divorce certificates and walked out of the civil affairs office. The housekeeper called Alex. Something must have happened with Sophie again. So Alex rushed off in a hurry. As for me, I sat alone in my car, holding the freshly issued divorce certificate, lost in thought for a long time. Then someone tapped on my car window. I snapped out of it. And when I looked up, I saw a handsome face smiling at me. Daniel. Instinctively, I tried to start the car, but had already walked around to the passenger side, opened the door, and casually slid in. Long time no see, sis. That night, you had your way with me, and then you ran off while I was showering. Not very responsible. Huh? I pressed my fingers hard against my temples, biting my lip without saying a word. Daniel was wearing a white shirt and black pants, looking clean and fresh, with his bangs falling over his forehead and those captivating almond-shaped eyes full of alluring mischief. What are you doing here? I sat up a little straighter, instinctively trying to stuff the divorce certificate into my bag. But the next second, Daniel snatched it away. I'll hold on to this for you, he said, casually tucking my divorce certificate into his pants pocket. All right. Now let's talk about us, Daniel said, his gaze dropping down to my still flat stomach. Sis, we have a child together now. Aren't you going to give me a proper place? To be honest, that night with Daniel was purely out of revenge toward Alex. We were at a cocktail party together when Alex got a call from Sophie and tried to leave. I'd had a few too many drinks, so I was a bit tipsy. I grabbed Alex, refusing to let him go, and shouted at him, asking if he'd found a new home with his mistress and was abandoning me. A lot of people overheard my outburst, and everyone looked on like they were watching a drama. Alex felt humiliated, cursed at me a couple of times, then shoved me aside and stormed off. But I was stubborn when I was drunk, so I followed him outside to keep questioning him. Eventually, Alex lost his patience and yelled, "What's wrong with me seeing other women? If you've got a problem with it, go find another man yourself." That line set me off. After standing outside the hotel in the cold wind for a few minutes, I spotted Daniel walking toward me alone. I stopped him. I whistled at him like a flirtatious woman. I asked, "Got a girlfriend?" I think he said no. At that moment, my head was full of Alex telling me to find another man. I don't remember exactly how I ended up at the business hotel with Daniel. The only thing that stuck with me was how intense that night was. Our families are old friends. The Browns have been close to us for generations. Daniel is a year and a half younger than me, and I even held him as a baby. But I wasn't steady enough, and we both tumbled onto the carpet. Daniel hit his forehead and cried hysterically. When we were kids, he was always clinging to me, calling me sis this and sis that. Then in high school, someone must have talked him into it, because he wrote me a love letter. Shortly after I rejected him, Daniel went abroad arranged by his family. After that, although we occasionally met at certain events, it was basically just exchanging a few pleasantries. Last night's impulsiveness and indulgence gradually faded away, after sobering up completely. Besides feeling guilty, I was also a bit at a loss. So that morning, while Daniel was taking a shower in the bathroom, I quietly got dressed and slipped away. Who would have thought that just one night would make me pregnant? Sister, I'm asking you. Daniel suddenly moved closer, winked his charming almond-shaped eyes at me, and said in a pitiful tone, "You're carrying my baby. And you've divorced Alex. Aren't you going to give me a status? You. Don't get so close to me." I quickly got goosebumps all over and instinctively moved aside. I have to get close. Daniel still sounded pitiful. I'm afraid you'll run away again. And who would I complain to then? Today was exactly the day for my prenatal checkup. Daniel looked all wronged, as if I had treated him like dirt. A good family man. So I had no choice but to take him to the hospital. I was pregnant, and Daniel wouldn't let me drive. He insisted I sit in the back while he drove at a snail's pace to the hospital for my checkup. I'm holding it in all the way. When we got out of the car, I couldn't help but say to Daniel, "That night was really just an accident. Daniel, our families are old friends. And we practically grew up together. Don't worry. I have no plans to remarry in the future. I'll raise the child alone. And no one will bully him. Could you? Just pretend that nothing happened that night. I don't need you to take responsibility. And don't make me take responsibility for you." Daniel's expression looked first speechless, then slowly turned to anger. I felt inexplicably scared and instinctively took 2 steps back. "Let's not talk about this for now." Daniel forced a smile. "I asked a doctor I know earlier. And for this prenatal checkup, you need to do a blood routine and blood glucose test. For blood glucose, I think you need to be fasting. Did you eat anything this morning?" I shook my head. Daniel grabbed my arm and walked inside, saying, "I heard women in early pregnancy have morning sickness and feel sleepy. Do you? Does morning sickness affect your appetite a lot? I've been learning to cook lately. What do you like to eat? I'll make it for you. As for feeling sleepy, that's fine. Sleep whenever you want. And I'll work harder to earn money for the baby's formula." He chattered all the way, and I couldn't get a word in. I had no idea Daniel could talk so much. He wasn't like this when we were kids. Sometimes when he got angry, he was very aloof and needed me to coax him. Because it was a private hospital and I had made an appointment in advance, there was basically no need to queue for the checkups. But Daniel was nervous the whole time. Every time he got a test report, he frowned and examined it carefully, even looking it up on his phone. I watched speechlessly. After finishing all the tests and taking the reports to the doctor, the doctor looked them over and said everything was normal. But Daniel wasn't reassured and asked the doctor many detailed questions about pregnancy precautions. He even made the doctor comfort him not to be too nervous. Coming out of the hospital, I went into a breakfast shop next door. After ordering, while the server was away, Daniel, sitting opposite, cleared his throat and said, "Emily, let's have a proper talk." I was drinking water from a disposable cup, and hearing Emily, I couldn't help it and sprayed water out. Daniel didn't mind. Just took a couple of tissues and wiped casually. I said with a strange look, "Haven't you always called me sister? Keep calling me that. It feels weird for you to suddenly use my name. If you like me to call you sister, that's fine too." Daniel didn't dwell on it. He continued, "Sister, when do you think is a good time for us to get our marriage license?" I just checked the calendar. Tomorrow is a good day. The server happened to bring the soup dumplings I ordered, and I picked one up but dropped it before I could put it in my mouth. Scared. Daniel. I took a deep breath, racked my brains, and said to him, "I don't like guys who are too young." Young. Who knew Daniel's thought process was completely out of sync with mine. He widened those attractive almond-shaped eyes and looked at me. "But that night you clearly said I was too big." For a moment, The dozen or so scattered customers in the breakfast shop turned to look at us. Growing up, I truly understood the meaning of wanting to crawl into a hole and hide for the first time. Shut up. I grabbed a steamed bun and stuffed it into Daniel's mouth. I'm hungry. So stop talking and let me eat. Oh. He lowered his head, looking a bit wronged, and stayed silent. We finished breakfast and returned to the car. I sighed and said to Daniel, "This child is purely an accident. I don't need you to take responsibility for him. And I won't marry you just because of the child. Don't overthink it." Daniel pressed his lips together and looked at me. "Emily, don't you have even a little bit of affection for me?" Seeing the hurt in his almond-shaped eyes, I hardened my heart and said, "That night I slept with you was purely to get revenge on Alex. If it hadn't been you by chance, it could have been any other man that night." Daniel didn't say anything else that day. He just safely drove me home and left. Since getting pregnant, my appetite has grown a lot, and my tastes have become a bit picky. I used to really enjoy the meals Aunt Wang cooked, but after she came to take care of me, I felt her cooking didn't suit my palate anymore. Lately, Aunt Wang has been acting sneaky, always glued to her phone, and I had no idea what she was up to. Strangely, though, when she cooked again, the recipes changed, and I loved everything she made. I thought Aunt Wang had learned some new recipes online, but I discovered she was messaging Daniel. It turned out the meal plans Aunt Wang used recently were all provided by Daniel, and even the ingredients were delivered by his arrangements. He claimed things like vegetables, fish, shrimp, and meat were specially bought from the countryside, all natural and pollution-free. Good for pregnant women. I twitched my lips and couldn't be bothered to care. Maybe it was from eating so much lately. But by the time I was 3 months pregnant, my weight had increased by almost 3 kilograms. I used to be a bit underweight, and now with the pregnancy weight gain, Aunt Wang said my complexion was much better than when I was at Red Maple Villa. Red Maple Villa was my marital home with Alex before. During those 3 years of marriage with Alex, especially by the 3rd year, we had long lost any feelings. He was out there with Sophie, becoming more brazen about appearing together everywhere. I was trapped alone in that cold, desolate villa, like a butterfly with broken wings, wasting my life day after day. But after divorcing Alex and moving out of Red Maple Villa, everything changed. Free from heartbreak and sorrow, I started living the life I wanted, eating delicious food every day, sitting on the balcony drawing my favorite designs. Such comfortable days filled me with hope for the future. That Saturday, my father called me. There was an evening banquet, but my little brother had a fever and wasn't feeling well, so my father and stepmother were tied up at the hospital. He called to ask me to attend the banquet on his behalf, and had already sent the invitation over. I agreed. Before heading out that evening, I deliberately chose a loose-fitting gown, didn't dare wear high heels, and opted for flats. I just didn't expect to run into Daniel at the banquet entrance. To be precise, Daniel was waiting for me there. "Emily." Daniel's face lit up with a smile as soon as he saw me. He walked over and took my arm. "Mind if I be your escort tonight?" Before I could answer, he winked at me. "Your scumbag ex-husband and his mistress are here tonight." I didn't push his hand away and went in with him. Lately, I'd heard a lot about Alex and Sophie. After my divorce from Alex, the two of them had become more open, with Alex often bringing Sophie to important events. But I heard Sophie had caused quite a few embarrassments. She was always trying to compete with me. But it was like trying to imitate someone and only making a fool of herself, not only backfiring but also getting laughed at behind her back. Sophie's background had been dug up online long ago. Her mother was a mistress who later died in a car accident. Sophie, with that innocent, pure face, was a somewhat famous streamer on a popular platform a few years back, until she met Alexander Smith. I was still thinking about Alex and Sophie when those two appeared. Sophie was wearing a white dress, her belly already showing. And even the loose dress couldn't hide her slightly swollen abdomen. She stood beside Alex, acting all dependent like a delicate bird. Sophie was chatting with a few ladies, a broad smile on her face. But the smiles on those ladies talking to her looked a bit forced. One of them saw me and hurried over. This was Mrs. Liu, wife of the CEO of Ingfeng Real Estate, and a major client of my studio. "Oh, Emily. It's been so long." Mrs. Liu took my hand and looked me up and down. "You look great. How have you been lately?" Daniel had just been called away by an elder he knew, saying he'd be back in 2 minutes and asking me to wait here. I chatted with Mrs. Liu for a bit, and the ladies who had been talking to Sophie came over to greet me. I looked up and saw Sophie not far away, clearly angry but forcing a smile. When I glanced over, Sophie tightened her grip on Alex's arm as if declaring ownership. She always thought that by rising through the ranks, she could break into this circle. But she didn't know that in circles like ours, no lady or miss would respect a woman who climbed up through being a mistress. Besides, Sophie had almost nothing going for her except her good looks. She didn't understand social etiquette, and her fashion sense was just blindly copying her favorite influencer style. At an event like this, Alex bringing Sophie along might make uninformed people think he loved and spoiled her. But in reality, it only made Sophie the target of ridicule and disdain from the other ladies in private. Halfway through the party, I got a bit tired. After looking around and not seeing Daniel, I found a corner to sit down, planning to eat something and rest. But there was always someone clueless who had to come and annoy me. "Oh, Emily, why are you sitting here all alone?" Sophie's sugary voice instantly killed my appetite for the little cake. I wiped my hands with a tissue and stared expressionlessly at the two sitting down opposite me. "What do you mean? All alone? What are you two then? Animals?" "Emily." Alex's face darkened as he snapped. "It's been a while. But how did you become so bitter?" "Sophie was just concerned about you." "Was that really necessary? Even if we're divorced and can't be friends, we don't have to be enemies, do we?" "Concerned about me?" I laughed. "Yes." "Sophie was so concerned that when I was busy with work and couldn't take care of you, she took the initiative to take care of you right into bed. And afterward, she sent me those skin-to-skin photos bragging about how amazing you were." Watching Alex's expression grow uglier, a strange sense of satisfaction washed over me. Look at me, bringing up old stuff for no reason, as if competing in nastiness. Who couldn't do that? Sophie blinked, and tears came instantly. "Emily, why do you have to humiliate me like this? I just love Alex too much. I didn't mean to hurt you." "No wonder they say shamelessness makes you invincible." A mocking male voice suddenly cut in. The next moment, Daniel lightly placed a hand on my shoulder, smiling as he spoke to Sophie across from us. "This Miss Shameless. Right. Wow. That name suits you perfectly. It's like you were born for it." Sophie blinked, sitting there frozen as if stunned. "Emily, let's go," Daniel said. "Hungry? I'll take you to eat something dumplings. Want some?" "Yes." I decided immediately and stood up. "Emily." I had just turned when Alex called out to me. His gaze fell on Daniel's hand gripping my arm, and he asked in a sour tone, "What's your relationship?" "Guess," I replied with a smile. Then followed Daniel without looking back. Sophie seemed to sense something and reached for Alex's hand, but he avoided it. After that night, Alex called and messaged me, but I ignored it all. At 3.5 months pregnant, one evening I suddenly felt a slight discomfort in my belly. In the middle of the night, Aunt Wang was also very nervous. Before I knew it, she called Daniel. When Daniel hurried over, my slight discomfort had already mostly subsided. However, Daniel wasn't reassured and insisted on taking me to the hospital. In the dead of night, He was busy running around the hospital alone. After the doctor examined me, he said there was no problem. And as for my earlier stomach ache, it was likely due to overeating at dinner. Aunt Wang had made potato pancakes for dinner, and I couldn't resist eating several extra pieces. After the doctor left and only the two of us remained in the ward, Daniel immediately looked at me with pleading eyes. "Emily, can I move in with you?" After I didn't agree to his marriage proposal, Daniel had bought the apartment across from mine within a few days and moved in. I averted my eyes from his pitiful peach blossom eyes. "Is it really not okay?" Daniel simply sat down on the hospital bed, leaning forward, his breath suddenly spraying on my face. "Emily," Daniel slowly leaned his forehead against mine, gently nuzzling it. "Give me a chance. Okay. I swear I'll treat you very, very well. It's okay if you don't want to get married now. When you want to get married in the future, could you consider me first?" With nowhere to retreat, Daniel's lips unexpectedly pressed against mine. But the kiss was just a light peck. He quickly pulled back and asked, "Did you find that annoying, Emily?" I instinctively shook my head. Daniel immediately smiled. Seeing the smile on his face, my heart inexplicably softened, and I raised my hand to push his shoulder. "Get up. You're pressing on my stomach." Although nothing was wrong, for safety, the doctor still had me stay in the hospital for a day to observe. On the third morning, when I was discharged, I happened to run into Alex and Sophie. The two seemed to be having a disagreement. Alex was sullen, while Sophie, with her swollen belly, was speaking to him gently. I was wearing a plaid short-sleeved shirt that wasn't loose, so my slightly rounded belly looked quite noticeable. When Alex and I locked eyes, he froze for a moment. Then his gaze fell on Daniel, who was carefully supporting my arm beside me, before returning and settling on my belly. A few seconds later, Alex, already slightly gloomy face filled with fury. "Emily." Alex rushed over and shouted, "You're pregnant. Whose bastard child is that?" Since Alex and I started divorcing, we hadn't had any marital relations for over half a year. So if I were pregnant, the child couldn't possibly be his. "Get away." Daniel shielded me with one hand and forcefully pushed away the mad dog like Alex. Sophie, pale-faced, came over and grabbed Alex's arm, saying softly, "Alex." This was the hospital lobby, bustling with people. Alex had shouted so loudly that many were curiously looking our way. Daniel pushed Alex away, then put his arm around my shoulder and said, "Let's go back. Ignore this mad dog." Who knew Alex would stride out after us and stop us at the hospital entrance. This time he didn't shout but gritted his teeth and said, "Emily, let's talk properly." I shook my head. "There's nothing to talk about between us." And I looked at Alex, a mocking smile on my face. "Don't you remember that night at the banquet? You left me to find Sophie. When I tried to stop you, you told me to go find a man too. So, Alex, what's the point of questioning me like a mad dog now?" The color drained from Alex's face. His lips trembled several times as if he wanted to say something, but no words came out. By the time he reacted, I was already in Daniel's car. The engine started, and we drove off quickly. In the rearview mirror, I saw Alex chase after us for over 10 meters before Sophie finally stopped him. I blocked all of Alex's contact methods. He found where I lived and started waiting downstairs every day. At first, I ignored him, not even going out, staying home reading books and painting. Over time, I started feeling stifled and really wanted to go downstairs for a walk to get some fresh air. But I was afraid of running into Alex. If he went crazy, as a pregnant woman, I wouldn't be able to run away. Daniel was like he could read my mind at that moment. He proactively offered to accompany me downstairs for a walk and act as my bodyguard. However, we didn't encounter Alex downstairs. I only found out a few days later that some project at a regional branch of the Smith family seemed to have serious issues. And Alex personally rushed over to handle it. He probably wouldn't be back for at least 10 days to half a month. Was it you who did it? I sat on a bench downstairs in the residential area, looking suspiciously at Daniel fiddling with his phone nearby. He immediately knew what I was asking and answered frankly. Yes. It was me. Daniel looked up at me and smiled. Emily, don't worry. I won't let Alex harass you. Then he held out his phone screen for me to see. Emily, what do you think of this crib? Should we custom make it for the baby? The crib in the picture was pink, with cartoon letters saying Little Princess around the edges, clearly meant for a little girl. I pouted. What if it's a boy? A boy can still use it. Daniel chuckled. Little kids don't know anything. He moved a bit closer. Emily, have you thought of a name for the baby? I've come up with a few. Do you want to hear them? He liked to get close to me from time to time, but beyond that, he never crossed any lines. So I'd gotten used to it by now. The names Daniel suggested were all for girls, and I thought each one sounded lovely, but I couldn't pick the right one right away. I saw Alex again when I went for my prenatal checkup at 4 months pregnant. That day, Daniel had something come up unexpectedly, and he wanted me to postpone the checkup by a day. But since I'd already made the appointment, I asked Aunt Wang to accompany me instead. After coming out of the obstetrics clinic on the 3rd floor and waiting for the elevator, Aunt Wang suddenly had a stomachache. So I sat on a chair opposite the elevators to wait for her. Who would have thought I'd run into Alex? He wasn't with Sophie today and looked completely worn out. Alex was followed by 2 burly bodyguards. A wave of unease washed over me, and before my mind could fully process it, my hand had already dialed Daniel's number. Alex's eyes were bloodshot, and after staring fixedly at my belly for a few seconds, he strode toward me. He snatched my phone and hung up the call. Emily, you and Daniel aren't suited for each other, Alex said coldly. The Brown family would never agree to let Daniel marry a divorced woman. And that child you're carrying is just a burden. Listen to me, get rid of it, and we can remarry. It felt like I was hearing the joke of the century. I stood up, trying to walk around him to the other side. This was a private hospital, so there weren't many people around anyway, and we were at the far end of the 3rd floor corridor, even with security cameras. Alex didn't seem fazed. I was about to scream for help when he forcefully covered my mouth. Emily, don't struggle, or you'll get hurt. He held me tightly, with those 2 bodyguard goons looming behind him. Not far from the elevator was the stairwell leading down to the hospital's underground parking lot. That lunatic Alex wanted to get rid of the baby in my belly. I didn't know if Daniel had seen the call I'd made earlier, but even if he had, would he get here in time? What should I do now? My mind raced. But Alex interrupted my thoughts again. I cheated. You cheated, Emily. We're even. Just get rid of the baby, and we can live well together from now on. I won't hurt you like that anymore. Do you really think that's possible? Alex. I sneered at him. Did you forget what you said about me? That I'm overbearing. That I'm like a dead fish in bed with no passion. That's why you'd rather find women outside than sleep with me. Watching Alex's face grow paler and paler, my fingers trembled with anger. What's wrong? Now that you know I'm pregnant with another man's child, you finally wake up and realize you've always loved me? Alex asked. Don't you think this is too ridiculous? Only after putting me in the car did Alex speak. I don't know when I started loving you. Emily, you come from a good family. You're capable. And you're beautiful. It's really hard for a man not to be drawn to you. But every time I think about how everything I have today is because of you, I feel conflicted. Later, I finally realized I'm just insecure. Because you've seen me at my weakest and most helpless moments. So I could only prove myself by constantly hurting you. I had thought about what Alex said before, but by now, It was all meaningless. Alex's car had just turned onto a narrow path when it was forced to stop. I saw Daniel stepping out of the car ahead, looking furious and ready to kill. My heart pounded hard, and I instinctively clenched my hands, telling Alex, "Let me out now." And I'll pretend today never happened. The path was too narrow. Daniel's car blocked the way, and Alex's bodyguards couldn't get through. Reversing was also difficult. Alex pulled me out of the car, and in the next instant, Daniel's fist swung toward him. Soon, they were exchanging blows, probably not wanting to lose face. Alex ordered his bodyguards not to intervene. He and Daniel grappled, evenly matched for a while. I grew frantic and quickly turned to grab my powered-off phone from the back seat of Alex's car. After turning it on, I immediately called the police. This day was bound to be chaotic. At the police station, the officers initially thought it was just a mutual fight. After a brief lecture to both parties, they brought over forms for Alex and Daniel to sign, preparing to release them. "Officer," I said slowly, under Alex's dark glare, "my ex-husband, Mr. Alex, kidnapped me today. He tried to force me to abort my baby. Please investigate this thoroughly." "Emily." Alex's face turned terrifyingly grim. If not for the police nearby, he would have rushed over to choke me. "Stop yelling." Daniel stood up, blocking me. "You two divorced long ago. Emily is my wife now. How dare you try to abort our child?" He grabbed the stunned officer beside him. "Officer, hospitals have cameras. You have to look into this. Punish this twisted, jealous freak who can't handle others having kids." The officer fell silent. Alex seemed too furious to respond, but the police took it seriously. Alex was detained temporarily while officers went to investigate the hospital where I had my prenatal checkup. After all that, it was past 4 p.m. when we got home. Aunt Wang had returned and cooked my favorite meal. On the way back, Daniel told me that when Aunt Wang came out of the restroom, she saw Alex carrying me away. She didn't want to alert him, so she called Daniel to report it. Then called the police and secretly followed Alex. Maybe the day's events scared me. My nerves were still wound tight. I didn't even refuse when Daniel wanted to stay overnight. After a bath, I read for a while, finally feeling sleepy enough for bed. But not long after falling asleep, I started having nightmares. In the dream, Alex's face was distorted and terrifying, had me tied to an operating table and forcibly took my baby. The heart-wrenching pain of losing my child made me scream out loud. I woke from the nightmare sweating profusely. At the same time, someone knocked on the bedroom door. It opened, and Daniel stood there, asking anxiously, "What's wrong? Sister, did you have a nightmare?" I stared at him blankly, my lips trembling. When I spoke, I called his name, "Daniel." Daniel came over and hugged me gently. His palms were dry and warm, patting my back softly until my panicked heart calmed down. "I'm sorry. It's all my fault today. I should have gone with you." Actually, when I came out of the police station, I had already realized it. How could Daniel's company have such a coincidence happen today? This must be Alex behind it. It has nothing to do with you. I shook my head gently in his arms. After a pause, I asked him, "Do you think? Will Alex be sentenced?" Alex is always very meticulous in his work. I'm afraid the hospital's surveillance cameras had already been cleaned up by Alex's people before the police went to retrieve them. At that time in the police station, I wasn't unaware of this possibility, but I still chose to expose this matter to intimidate Alex. All right. Don't overthink it." Daniel kissed my forehead. "Go to sleep. I'll take care of everything else." That night, he didn't go out and stayed by my bedside the whole time. Because of that incident, I had some threatened miscarriage and had to rest in bed at home for over a week. As I expected, the hospital's surveillance cameras had long been cleaned up by Alex's people. He was only verbally warned by the police and released. Since there was no evidence, my accusation of Alex's kidnapping didn't hold up. Instead, during this time, Alex's company was jointly suppressed by my father and Daniel. And after losing 2 major projects in a row, the Smith family is now in a panic. However, what followed was that my affair with Daniel during my marriage was posted online. Within half an hour, the post exposing my cheating was trending. The post was detailed, even down to the specific time and the hotel Daniel and I stayed at that night. Comments under the post included skeptical ones, those gleefully gossiping, and those criticizing me. Just as the discussion was heating up, Alex and Sophie's names also trended. Sophie's life story from childhood was thoroughly exposed online. My first reaction was that Daniel did it. But then I thought it was unlikely because it's not Daniel's style. Daniel and my post quickly disappeared. But Alex and Sophie became the new topic of discussion. It wasn't until Daniel came back that evening that I learned that Sophie and Alex's situation was arranged by my stepmother. I was a bit surprised, because my relationship with my stepmother is really distant, to avoid her overthinking. After my divorce, I rarely went back, only occasionally to see my father. Daniel also told me that my stepmother went to see Sophie once. The post about Daniel and me was posted online by Sophie using a burner account, and my stepmother somehow taught her a lesson. Terrifying Sophie. Honestly, the feeling of having someone solve problems for me without me lifting a finger is pretty great. But the comfortable days lasted less than 2 days before being disrupted by a phone call. Daniel's mother called me. She already knew about my pregnancy and said she wanted both families to have a meal together sometime. Since childhood, Aunt Han has been very good to me. When I received her call, I felt inexplicably guilty. But after all, she's an elder who watched me grow up. So I had to agree to the meal. On Saturday evening, in a private room at a hotel, the Brown and Johnson families sat down to eat, and the atmosphere was more harmonious than I imagined. My stepmother is only 10 years older than me, but she looks very aloof, giving an unapproachable vibe. I've been divorced once, and my father and stepmother don't see it as a stain. So when Daniel's aunt brought it up, my stepmother said lightly, "So what if she's divorced? Our Emily is so outstanding. She shouldn't be stuck with a scumbag forever, right? Besides, even if our Johnson family's daughter never marries again, we'll provide well for her and her child." That's not what we meant. Aunt Han quickly gave Daniel's aunt a look, signaling her to stop. I like Emily. So no matter how many times she's been married, I don't mind. Daniel suddenly grabbed my hand and said affectionately, "If Emily is willing to give me a chance to care for her, I'll treat her well for life and never let her suffer any hardship." Just as I was feeling a bit touched, I heard my stepmother snort. Nice words are easy to say. Daniel wasn't angry but took out some documents and placed them on the table. I know words alone aren't enough. This is all my assets. As long as Emily is willing, I'll give it all to her. And she can pay me a salary every month. My stepmother shut up. My father cleared his throat and said, "Daniel, well, don't be too impulsive. Think twice. Think twice." Daniel said seriously, "Dad, I've thought it through clearly." My father silently looked away. Then Daniel asked me nervously, "Emily, are you willing to take my property and pay me a salary every month?" I didn't agree to Daniel, but I didn't refuse either. I said I needed time to carefully consider matters between us. Actually, I was quite curious. Where exactly did Daniel like me? Clearly, since he went abroad in high school, our contact had been very little. Even when we met, it was just a polite, formal greeting. When did he start liking me? These questions kept scratching at my heart like a kitten. I couldn't hold it in after a few days. And one day when Aunt Wang went out shopping, I asked Daniel, who knew before he even spoke. His ears turned red first. After a long silence, Daniel finally said in a muffled voice. When I was little. Because I was short. I was always mocked and bullied at school. Every time. You stepped in and drove away those who bullied me. My grades were poor. And tutors would leave after teaching me a few times. Only you tirelessly helped me with my studies. Daniel's long, slender fingers clenched and then relaxed. He said, Actually, I don't even know exactly when I started liking you. It was in high school when I had that kind of dream. I dreamed of you. And when I woke up that morning, I felt like the sky had fallen. I was stunned for a moment. There was a time when you kept avoiding me. Was it then? Daniel nodded with red ears. At that time, I felt like I had desecrated you. Felt very guilty. And thought I was shameless for dreaming about you like that. I didn't dare face you again. But I couldn't help wanting to see you. If I didn't see you during the day. My dreams at night were filled with your image. At that time, I thought I must be crazy. I found an anonymous online forum to post. And after reading the comments, I realized that feeling wasn't madness. It was a crush. An uncontrollable longing and affection. Later, when you married Alex, I had planned to keep those dark thoughts buried in my heart forever, never speaking them out. But Alex treated you poorly. Daniel looked at me, and I was moved by the darkness in his eyes. My heart raced in an instant. Daniel. I felt my throat go dry, instinctively wanting to avoid hearing what he would say next. But Daniel grabbed my hand tightly, not allowing me to escape. He said, You don't know. When I found out Alex treated you poorly, I thought many times about taking you away from him. I looked into his eyes. Those beautiful peach blossom eyes were now full of possessiveness towards me. I took a light breath, wanting to say something, but in the end, I said nothing. I said I would seriously consider marrying Daniel. And I really did think about it seriously for a while. When I was 5 months pregnant, Daniel and I got our marriage license. Actually, this decision was made on the spur of the moment. That day, Daniel drove me to a private kitchen for lunch. And we passed by the Civil Affairs Bureau. I happened to see a young couple who had just gotten their marriage license, both beaming with happy, sweet smiles. For some reason, I thought back to when Alex and I got our marriage license. Because at that time, he wasn't very willing to marry me. So when we got our marriage license, including during the photo, he had a cold expression the whole time. So I asked Daniel, Do you want to get a marriage license with me? At first, he looked bewildered. But when he realized what I meant, his face lit up with ecstasy. That day, we didn't eat at the private kitchen. Instead, we ran straight to the Civil Affairs Bureau to queue up for marriage. I heard news about Alex again a few days before I gave birth. It was the dead of winter, and with the new year approaching, the hospital became quiet. Since I was admitted to the hospital early for delivery, a few friends visited me before the birth, bringing many things for me and the unborn baby, afraid I'd be bored in the hospital. They also chatted with me about a lot of gossip. Among it was gossip about Alex and Sophie. Only then did I know that the child in Sophie's belly wasn't Alex at all. Back then, to use the child to climb up, Sophie took a risk by finding a stranger to borrow seed. After getting pregnant, she quickly settled with him in cash. However, after accidentally learning Sophie's identity, that man kept blackmailing her with the borrowed seed incident. This matter was soon known by Alex. Alex dragged Sophie to the hospital for a checkup. And the result proved that the child in Sophie's belly was indeed not his. No matter how Sophie cried and begged, Alex didn't soften his heart. He kicked Sophie out of Red Maple Villa. For some reason, the two of them had never gotten married before. So after Sophie was kicked out, she didn't get a single penny. She went to find Alexander Smith many times, but Alex refused to see her. Later, she heard that Sophie Williams had given birth to a daughter. But as soon as the child was born, Sophie abandoned her at the hospital and disappeared without a trace. The hospital staff managed to contact Alex. But Alex said the child had nothing to do with him and refused to take the child home to care for her. Alex had been extremely stressed during this time. Several elders of the Smith family were very dissatisfied with him. To suppress Alex during this period, they had already supported one of Alex's cousins. Inside the Smith family, disputes were constant, and they lost many customers. After hearing all this, I didn't have any special feelings. I didn't feel schadenfreude, nor did I feel worried or sad. Because this person and I had long since had nothing to do with each other. My life is good now. And as for Alex, whether his life is good or bad is his own business. A few days before New Year's Eve, after being in pain all day, I naturally gave birth to a little boy in the evening. I was so exhausted that I slept deeply for several hours. When I woke up, I saw Daniel Brown beside me, keeping watch. He had been crying. His eyes were still red. When he saw I was awake, he asked if I was hungry, thirsty, or if my wound hurt. I glanced around the hospital room and finally saw my son sleeping in a small crib not far away. We had already chosen a name for the child. If it was a boy, he would be called Han Mo. Daniel helped me sit up and then brought our son over for me to see. He suddenly leaned in and gently kissed my cheek. Honey, thank you for being willing to have a child for me. Thank you for being willing to form a small family with me. I looked at my son sleeping soundly by the bed, then at Daniel beside me, as clingy as a big puppy, and felt an unprecedented sense of peace. After I finished my postpartum confinement, Daniel began preparing for the wedding. We had agreed earlier that we would discuss holding a wedding after the baby was born, but Daniel handled all that. I started focusing on my own studio work, going out shopping with friends, and coming home to play with my son. Life was comfortable and pleasant. On the wedding day, the sky was so clear it seemed thoroughly washed by water. Our wedding took place by the sea, with not many invited guests. Just close friends and relatives from both families. I stood in a sea of flowers wearing a pure white wedding dress, while Daniel in a suit bent down in front of me to straighten the hem of my dress. Suddenly, click. The photographer captured that moment with the camera. The daytime excitement gradually faded. That night, after the passion subsided, I lay in Daniel's arms and softly asked him, "Didn't you say you wrote me love letters before? Where are they?" From when he went abroad in high school until before I married Alex, Daniel had written me 3 love letters every year. But he had sealed them away, and I had never read a single one. Do you want to see them now? Daniel was a bit embarrassed. This guy, who had been as fierce as a hungry wolf in bed just moments ago, was now blushing with shyness, his ears turning red. How can a person be so contradictory? I couldn't help but pinch Daniel's ear and asked him with a smile, "I won't look at them. Why don't you just read them to me instead?" "Okay. I'll read them to you." Daniel leaned over and pressed down. He read love letters to me for most of the night, but in a very shameless way. The next morning when I got up, Daniel was no longer in the room. Going out, I found him with our son practicing rolling over in the living room. As little Han Mo grew, his peach blossom eyes were exactly like his father's, making them irresistible. I stood quietly at the bedroom door, watching the father and son playing happily on the living room rug. Sunlight poured in through the open balcony door. On such a beautiful day, with my loving husband and adorable son by my side. It was wonderful.